That's it.
Now we're live. Welcome back. Good
Good
morning.
morning, James.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Actually, I saw you. I saw you not too long ago, right? I saw you at Cesar.
What is today? Monday? I saw you Saturday night.
Yep.
Saturday night,
Yep.
it was
Well, and
busy.
yeah, right, huh?
It's pretty
Cool.
much
Nice.
always busy these days since we
Yeah, I
got
know. I saw.
press
That's
and
great. Oh, you got more press? Well, I saw the
well, just
article. I saw the article written by Roy. Wow, that's
yeah, he did a good job.
damn.
Yeah, well, people are very sad and angry that we're being forced out, and so they're coming in. Everybody wants to get in
The
as
fix.
much as they can and
I
support
know.
us. And
I do too. Because what else are we gonna do after that?
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have a space nearby and we'll move and we'll reopen and it'll all be back to normal. But I don't know what's going to happen. I don't kn- We
Right.
don't have a space yet. And
Right.
of course, once we get a space, we'll announce it. We'll be
Great.
yelling
Great.
it to everyone we encounter.
Good.
And
Great.
so hopefully it'll
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
nearby. But who knows? Who
And
knows what the
soon.
future holds?
I do.
You do?
But
Oh,
I'm not
good.
telling. So welcome, people. Welcome again. Um,
Well,
table for 7 billion. How did we get even to that?
Well, there are 7 billion people on Earth, and we want them all at our table. We want to invite
Yeah,
every
we want to
single one
feed
of them.
them, right? They
I
need to
mean,
be
there's
fed.
there's a couple people I don't want to invite, but mostly I do.
So I know you have a lot of questions today. I know that because I saw your worksheet.
Yeah, I
And
have.
remember the ginger we did. Remember I showed you how to dry
Right,
ginger, right?
right.
This is it.
Oh, nice.
This is
So
my
now, how
ginger.
do
And
you use that? Do you have to reconstitute it when you use it,
no,
or?
you can grind it. Grind it.
Uh
I
huh.
don't want to grind all of it because I'm going to lose my. It's going to oxidize.
Uh
So
huh.
I'm going to grind what I need. You can take a mortar and pestle, or you can just chew on that, or put that in a tea. This is
Oh,
great tea, but it
nice.
won't go bad. You see the idea, right?
Right,
This
right.
this will stay. This stays just like that. So basically, my ginger that I sliced a few weeks ago, I sliced it and dried it on on one of those guys, just like that outside. And this is it. This is my ginger and my turmeric. So I can use it whenever I want. Right?
That's nice. Because of course water is where bacteria breeds. It needs
Yep.
water to breed, and so once you take all the moisture out of something,
Hmm.
it's kind of impervious to anything.
Exactly. Right. Whatever brings mold. Yep. Cool, man.
Yeah.
So you have
So
a
does
guest,
that mean if I just stop drinking water, I'll live longer?
probably.
Speaking of drinking and speaking of Cesar and bars, when we left off last week, we were talking a lot about wine. And there are questions people have, and I get these questions all the time at the bar. There's two in particular. One of them is, what's the difference between tequila and mezcal?
Oh yeah. I,
Which
I
I
think
think
I asked. I think I asked you that.
you did. And I said, how the hell do I know? What do
I
I
said,
look like?
let me
An
do some research and
encyclopedia?
I'll talk.
Well, the difference is very simple, and yet it's very complicated. There's a legal
That's a
difference.
good answer. That's a good answer. I like
Was that evasive enough? Could I be a politician?
that.
The legal definition is that tequila has to be made. There's a few criteria that have to be met in order for a product to be called tequila. One, it
Right.
has to be made within a certain area.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
there's a geographic.
it started all in the state of Jalisco, where the town
Mm.
of Tequila is, of course, but there are a couple of other nearby locations that are included in that now. But still a relatively small area in Mexico that it has to come from, and it has to be made from at least 51% blue agave, which is a particular type of agave. Agave is a kind of it's not really a cactus. It's more like an aloe plant. It's a cactusy looking thing that the sap from which is what they take to ferment and then distill into tequila
Right.
and mezcal.
So they ferment first.
Right, the
Then
fermented first, and the natives there, they were fermenting this sap for thousands of years before the
Right.
Europeans came.
Yep.
And
Right.
then the Europeans showed them how to distill it into a spirit. So tequila has to be made from a particular type of agave. It has to be at least 51%, although the best tequilas are all 100%.
100%. Okay. So
Yeah.
what would be the rest if you have 50%? What's the rest?
Some sort of neutral
Uh,
grain spirit.
okay.
Could
Oh
be
yeah, yeah. Okay.
anything.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Now, mezcal, it has a much broader definition. It can be made anywhere, virtually
Right.
anywhere.
Oh, okay.
And it is, although there's a sort of a range in Mexico where agave grows, so there
Right.
it's somewhat limited. And then it can be made from any type of agave, although there's only apparently there's like 400 different kinds of agave.
Yeah. Lots. Yeah.
But mezcal is made from, there's about 8 that are used to make mezcal. And the other difference with mezcal is that when they take what they call the piña, which is the
Right.
heart of the
Right.
agave. It's called piña because it looks like a pineapple, and they crush it, and then they kind of cook it over smoke.
Right. They smoke it. Right.
Right,
They
and
cook
that's
it or
why
they smoke it.
mezcal, yeah, and that's why mezcal has a smoky flavor
Right.
to it. Some more than others, of course. Some are very mild, some are very smoky.
Right. Right.
Um,
Because the mezcal, the agave from the mezcal. I mean, agave is a tough plant to grow. Huh?
right, it takes a
It
very, very
takes
long
what? It
time.
takes seven years to even come to maturation,
It's
and it's really difficult. So it's really rare. It's very hard to make tequila and mezcal. So it's
right,
and a lot of time there is shortage, and a lot of restaurants cannot get all their tequilas. By the way,
right,
so
right,
you're gonna see that more and more. And yeah, and same with mezcal. So it's a small production. I mean, relatively small, and
relatively small.
that's all there is, right?
It's not like making whiskey or vodka that are made from grains, which you can grow in abundance and you can grow it year round, and
Right, right.
they don't take long. You can grow grain in one season and have enough barley or
Yeah,
whatever to make whiskey.
exactly.
But agave is
Tequila
rare.
is not.
It's
Yeah,
astounding to me that they can make as much tequila and mezcal
right.
as they do,
Yep.
considering
Yeah.
the agave is so
I
precarious.
I remember we had the mezcal at Cesar, the Tobala. Remember the Tobala? The no,
Uh-huh.
that brand that was really rare. We only get 2 bottles a year. Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
something like that.
That
Yeah.
it's made of an agave called Tobala, which is a wild agave that never grows back. Do you know that?
Oh.
It never
Oh,
grows back. It's weird. It's like it's one life. So those mezcal were expensive. Remember, there was $20 a pop.
right.
They was
For
super
a
beautiful.
shot, for a
Yeah,
drink,
yeah. You
not a
remember the
bottle.
name of that? There's a three. It's the same brand. One, and
Well,
there's
there's the
three.
Del Maguey brand, which has
Yes,
3 or 4
yes.
different, labels.
That's the
Yeah.
one. Those are okay. And that
Those are
one
the
has.
first ones to really become big in America, to really show people that mezcal could be a good spirit. It was always
Love
sort of
mezcal.
looked down upon. Mezcal was always considered
Ah,
sort of
yeah.
the poor cousin to
Right.
tequila, and it's just not true. I mean, there certainly are a lot of raunchy mezcal around. I mean,
Yep.
there's no
Yep.
question. But
I like
there's
mezcal.
crappy tequila around too. But the best of the best are really, really good. Tequila is a wonderful
But
thing to put in drinks because it
oh
does
yeah.
have a lot of flavor. That smokiness can come through.
Yep. But
I
they're
like
not
them
also.
both.
So are you talking about the smoked tequila then?
Well, mezcal has that smoky flavor to it. Tequila typically does not. But are you guys familiar with Meta mezcal? No, not by that name. What is that? Oops, Neta.
Meta, like Facebook. Yeah, that's what you meant.
I
This was
don't. I'm not familiar with that. But
no, they
I'm not a mezcal expert either. I know probably more than the average person on the street, but I'm certainly no
right.
expert. I know people that really study mezcal and they know all the different nuances of all the different brands.
You look
We
more average than the average people in the street.
do I do I
Yeah.
I'm probably older than the average person on the street. Um, so they're both great. Again,
So what, chef? I'm sorry, Jim.
there
I
are
was
good brands and bad brands, but both
right.
mezcal and tequila
I
can
was
be
asking
very,
you
very
this
good.
because we talked about the mezcal being smoky. So
Hmm.
also some tequilas are smoky, like
True. There
the
are a couple
pesto.
that
So some of
that
them follow the same procedure. They're gonna smoke the pit, that bulb,
yeah,
before they go ahead and ferment it and distill it. So
right,
they're gonna
right.
cook it. Yeah.
But that's
So
pretty
some,
rare. Most tequilas don't do
but
that.
for, yeah, but like some of them are smoky, which I
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Like which ones are the chinaco or what
Chinaco is
else?
a brand. I don't know that it's
Smoky a little
necessarily
bit, the
very
gold one. Anyway,
maybe. And then
so
there are three different levels there typically. There's Blanco, which or
right,
silver tequila, which is
yep,
virtually unaged. It's
right,
made, it's set aside for a couple of weeks to kind of,
yep,
come together, and then it's bottled and it's sold.
yep,
Then there's what's called reposado, which means kind of rested, and
yep.
that sits in oak for a very short time,
Few months,
uh,
like two
few
months or
months,
something.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it gets a little tinge of color, and it definitely gets more flavor. There
yep.
are some reposados that are just absolutely delicious.
Oh yeah,
And then there's añejo, or which means aged, which spends 2 or 3 years in
yeah.
oak,
At least two
sometimes
years, right?
more,
Right.
and that takes on a lot more flavor from the oak, a lot more color. It's darker,
Yep,
it's richer, can be a little sweeter. It can also be kind of caramelly,
yep. So
and they can be wonderful. Those are wonderful sipping tequilas.
yeah, for the caramel though, a lot of alcohol maker in the world add caramel to the
Sure,
alcohol. So because
sure,
whiskey is the same, rum is the same. So
yeah.
the caramel is something that's often added to a darker product.
And there's nothing wrong with that,
Right.
as long as they're
Yep.
judicious about it and don't make it too sweet. Um, I tend to like tequilas more for sipping, and I like mezcal more in drinks. But
In shots.
yeah, in shots. But they're both good. And it's
Yeah.
funny, when I was young, when I was in my 20s and I was living in New York City, tequila was the only thing we ever thought about tequila, well, margarita,
Yeah.
or it was just shots where you do the salt, the take a shot and
Yeah.
bite into the
That
lime.
was fun.
And it is fun. And it was years later that I discovered that tequila is just a wonderful thing to sip.
Uh,
It's a
it
delicious.
works. It works without the salt and the lime. Did you
Yeah.
know that?
Yeah. In fact, a lot of people theorize that the reason they started salting the rim of a margarita was to disguise the poor quality tequila, that it added flavor to the tequila and made up for, because a lot of
It's
times
possible.
they would use crappy tequila to make the drinks because it was cheaper. And
Well, in South America, the base is lime and sugar. So you go
yeah,
everywhere and you drink caipirinha,
right.
mojito, all this stuff, South America or
Daiquiris.
Cuba.
Yep.
This
Yep.
is all based on lime or lemon sometimes and sugar.
Hmm.
So I would say the lime and the sugar, I'm sorry, lime and lemon add a lot of vitamin C and it's good for your liver. So it's really helpful when you drink alcohol. It's very,
Right.
very important.
Right.
Lemon and limes are very important for alcohol. I always try to
Makes
point
you
it out.
grumpy, Kenneth. I didn't
That
know
means
you could be grumpy. Tequila
makes
makes
me
me
happy. I
happy.
love tequila. Yeah, me too.
Tequila makes me happy.
It's a good alcohol from. I don't drink a lot, obviously, but I love tequila. One tequila, I'm gonna sip it. It's gonna feel, yeah,
Yeah, I
good
like
stuff.
to sip it. I
Good
don't
stuff.
do shots anymore. That's for young kids that
We're
just want to get
yeah,
high.
we're
But
done with that.
I like a good quality
Our liver
tequila.
can't take it, man.
One of my favorites is Ocho. I love Fortaleza.
Yeah.
You mentioned Chinaco. That's another good one.
Um,
There's a bunch of them. Sete Linguas.
City
Uh,
Linguas, that's a beautiful one also.
yeah.
Wow.
Even Don Julio is a wonderful
Don
tequila.
Julio, that was a good one. See, that
Yeah.
was one of the first good tequila that was signed to Patron was
Patron was another one. Patron has cut some
oh,
corners these days. They're
well, but
I think it's still a decent tequila to drink, but
and Herradura, that's the one we had when we
Herradura.
started, right? Remember that?
Yeah, Herradura used to be
100%
our well
silver.
tequila.
The silver, that's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
I like Herradura a lot in a margarita. I think it's a
Yeah, right.
great
For the
base for a
silver, I
margarita.
hate the Sosa and the Cuervo. Oh my God, those are
Yeah,
disgusting.
no, they're not they're they're not all 100% agave, and
They taste alcoholic.
yeah,
You
yeah.
taste the alcohol like strongly.
which is funny because when you had your bar in Paris, you were like the number one consumer
Cuervo,
of Cuervo,
Cuervo. No.
which probably was all you had available back then. I
I
mean,
had two available in France. We had Cuervo. Sosa was coming,
uh-huh.
but and they were super expensive. You can imagine that. And look at
Yeah.
Fode. Fode remember because Fode was drinking
Yeah.
my whole. Fode Fode was my chef at Texas Coyote at the Tex-Mex that I had in Paris. That I kept for 8 years, and Fode was my chef, amazing chef, and he remember very well the tequila and the mezcal. But we had my bar in France had the most, what was that? I would
You
the
went through
big
the
I
most.
yeah, I had the biggest order of tequila in all France.
Yeah.
So people from
Champagne
Cuervo,
and
man,
mezcal.
they were that's why we because we used to do slammers
Oh.
with champagne because we had at the bar we had the Canard du Chêne or Veuve Clicquot, and this it's funny because so to keep my quota of like having good prices, I had to go through a enough of sales. You know what I mean? So we'd
Yeah.
sell the mezcal with champagne
Oh,
as a
interesting.
shot because I wanted to have, and
Yeah.
I was keeping my thing so I could get money from all these guys to do my awning, my menus, a bunch of stuff. They would give me so much money to do menus, beautiful things, and Quavo, they ship, they one day they wanted to go on the south, Aix-en-Provence, Marseille,
Uh-huh.
Saint-Tropez. Nobody knew tequila there, so they flew me there, and we did a 24-hour event on the beach. So
Wow.
we rented this crazy stuff. We had tequila at will. I mean, literally at will. So people kept coming with their cases from the truck. It was insane, right? But they were super happy, even though the event. I have pictures. By 4 o'clock in the morning, everybody was sleeping on the beach. It was fine. It was great. It was really fun. But they were able to conquer that whole market because nobody has never seen tequila, and they were so
Right.
excited. So it was a
Right.
huge opening for them. It was really cool. Nobody's seen a tequila mezcal. They didn't know what it was, and we were doing tequila slammers and margarita on the beach all night. Yeah,
Yeah, if you would have traveled to Paris in the 50s and tried to order tequila, people would have
yeah.
looked at you like you were crazy.
In the 50s or
Anywhere in your
even
anywhere in
later,
Europe.
even in the
Yeah.
80s, that didn't exist.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
it was fun. So Quavo, yeah, Quavo was fun because it was the only thing. But then I realized it was give me a headache too much. It's
Well,
too
the
sweet,
the the
too
good
sweet.
thing about Cuervo is like you say, they really introduced tequila to the greater populace. I mean, they
Oh my
sort of
God.
introduced tequila in America.
Oh yeah.
I mean, for a long time, Cuervo was it. It
Oh
was like it
yeah.
was like the equivalent of Bacardi rum. I mean, it was just
Right.
everywhere.
Totally, totally. It's great. And they were fun, man, because they were coming to a country what had no idea, right? So the only place in France we had Bacardi was kind of big, but then we
Hmm.
have all these vermouth, people are not
Right.
whiskey. Johnny Walker, that was a big one. GNB, that's what people are drinking, and then rum, like Bacardi and Clément, because you have to understand that in France, the tax is really expensive, except for the
Right.
French alcohol.
Oh,
So
right.
Clément was a coming from Martinique, I think, or Guadeloupe, I
Uh-huh.
forgot, and he was a French, um,
It was a
whatever
French
you call that.
spirit, so
Yeah,
it was
right. So it was cheap. So people would buy that rather than buying a GNB or
right.
a Bacardi because that was way too expensive. It's funny, huh?
Right.
Because the tax in
Right.
Europe is really expensive. It's like 75% or something
When I
on the
used to
on alcohol.
go when I used to go to Europe a lot with Dean and DeLuca, my boss, Joel Dean, he would often buy a bottle of booze in the duty free so that he could have it in his hotel room because to go out
Yeah,
and buy a bottle of,
yeah.
say, scotch or something
Oh yeah,
in
super
was
expensive.
very, very expensive.
Wait, I'm wondering, Frode, were you there when we had this big event for Quavo in Saint-Tropez? It was in Saint-Tropez.
Nice. I'll bet
So
that was
imagine
fun.
Saint-Tropez in the summer. all the fancy, all the actors and all the
Yeah,
whatever. My God, it
would have
was,
been packed
man. I
out
have to
there.
show you the pictures. I kept some of the pictures. It's
Oh, I'd
pretty,
love to see.
it's
I'd
wild.
love to see.
And everybody with a Quavo t-shirt. It was insane. It was huge deal. The press talked about it. Oh no, Friday was not a way. You know what? In a way, I'm glad.
Yeah.
We
Well,
lost
because
some people. We lost some people. I lost a couple of waiters. I mean, because no, we had to go back to Paris. We had, my restaurant was, I closed for a few days for that event, so they paid for everything, but I had to go back, and I lost a couple of waiters. They were all, I don't know what happened to them. I saw them later, like a week later, they came back.
oh my God, oh my God.
Yep.
Well, yeah,
Mhm.
traditionally in France and a lot of places in Europe, the only spirits available were domestically produced, and they were all wine based. So that's why you had a lot of vermouth, brandy. They were all based on wine, which is
Yep.
such a big product
Right.
in
Yep.
France and Italy and Switzerland and
Aperitif,
Germany.
and then
Yeah,
cognac and Armagnac was a big deal because that's
sure,
what,
sure.
but that's it.
Yeah. And all the
So all
vermouth,
this,
all the vermouth and
right?
pastis, those are all based on wine, so
Yep.
those would have been very common. And of course, the
But
whole
pastis is strong. It's too strong. It's like,
yeah,
I think it's like 90 proof or something.
yeah.
It's
That's why
crazy
all those
stuff.
people in the Belle Epoque went crazy drinking absinthe because
Absinthe is even more. Absinthe
I
is
know it's really high alcohol, and that's why they talked about the
so
wormwood, and I said, well, it
no,
might be the wormwood a little bit, but it's also because
no.
you
It's
drink
not the
anything
wormwood.
that's that high in alcohol, you're going to go
It,
crazy.
it's not the wormwood. The wormwood is an antiviral. It's used for other things. It's
Yeah.
called Artemisia
Ah, that's
from
easy. That's easy for you to say.
the story is really cool, James. Actually, I'll tell you. I'll tell you one day. It has to do with the story of Hippocrates, by the way. It's
Aha.
all the
Okay.
same lineage. Artemis, the twin sister of Apollo,
Right.
uh, daughter of Zeus, and she gave her son. Anyway, I'll put that story together. It's super interesting
That'd be
because
fun.
then Hippocrates came in fourth century BC, and we're talking 700 BC. That's the time Zeus and Artemis gave the name to Artemisia, that plant that became hydroxychloroquine later. And the artemisinin, got a Nobel Prize not too long ago, like
Huh.
10 or 20 years ago. So basically, those are old medicine, very, very old medicine. And it's also called ambrosia because that was the Celtic name. So it's really, really interesting how medicine came so long from very, very far away, right? And this is something we're still using today. So it's pretty cool.
Well, so many of those things
I
originated
know.
as medicinal products. I mean, the monks
And it's still,
created some of this stuff, other people, and it was all to cure stomach problems.
whatever.
Even some of it was even to cure mental health problems or fevers and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, went on a
The
campaign to make it
absinthe,
see
absinthe
evil.
is
Oh,
from the
that's an interesting idea that the winemakers were behind it. Because it was,
that's
people were drinking absinthe, they weren't drinking enough wine, and,
because also that period of time, it's after the 100 years old, 100 year with England, because absinthe came later, right? It
uh-huh,
or at the same time. And what happened is there was no more wine for a while. The wine was because Aquitaine, which is where the English were, right? They
right.
kept that. But the absinthe was a big deal. So was champagne. It was just starting. That was just the beginning of champagne after that war, which is ended in 1400 something, 1450 or something. So after that, you could see all this. But the absinthe came also at the same time, and they were made by the Chartreux, the
Mhm, mhm.
and it disappeared a little bit during the revolution. And they literally fled and was hiding. And then one of the noble bought that monastery back and give it back to the Père Chartreux so they could keep going the absinthe. Absinthe is great. Yeah, it's beautiful,
It's a
beautiful
beautiful
product. I had some.
I've
I
seen
had.
that book. Kenny, I've seen that book. It's a great book. It's a
I had
whole
some. I had.
history
I
and
had absinthe. I'll show you next week. It's so fantastic. This is a good alcohol. You drink very little, huh? And it's 140 proof.
Yeah. And of
140
course,
proof.
these guys that were sitting in the, the Moulin Rouge and all these
Yep.
places during the Belle Epoque, they were drinking this stuff by the bottle, and
Yeah.
and they were getting hammered. And
Oh yeah.
Toulouse-Lautrec was infamous.
Alcohol.
He could
It's
he could
alcohol.
drink all night long, and
All
Van
these
Gogh,
guys, all of them,
all of
all
them.
these writers, André Gide,
Even in the 20s,
Céline,
Hemingway wrote about drinking absinthe, and
all these people. That was the thing, and it's the, the alcohol content that make them sick.
yeah, yeah,
It's too much. It melt your brain. So it's
I
not
know. It's
the
just
wormwood has nothing to do with it. It's wormwood is a antiviral. It's a very specific plant that has been used for many therapeutics.
but somehow, and I don't know whether, I mean, Kenny might be right that the winemakers were behind this campaign, but somehow
Ah,
absinthe
possibly, yeah.
was labeled as being this really evil, destructive. It was
Right.
called the Green Fairy. Uh,
Wow.
and it was supposed to be this thing that when you drank it, it just made you mad, and people did crazy stuff. I mean,
And it did.
the most famous example is, Van Gogh cutting his ear off. But he was also mentally ill, and was an alcoholic, and was drinking a lot of stuff, and just got a little nuts, and so it got banned. And then was it Pernod, or was it uh,
Ricard.
Ricard
It's one
came
of
out
those
with this
two. Right.
pastis, which was an
Diluted. Yeah.
alternative to absinthe because it didn't have any
Yeah.
wormwood, because that was thought to be the big, bad ingredient. Um,
Yeah. No,
and
wormwood is
the
an alchemy.
tradition of an
It's a
anisette at
plant.
the end of the day is a really nice thing. It's a very common thing,
It's
especially in the
great,
south of
but
France, in
that's why you
Provence.
cut it with water. You
Right,
cut it with water. You don't shoot it like this. It's too much. It's way too strong.
right,
And people that drink pastis all day long, they're drunk as hell.
yeah.
I know. I used to work in south of France, and man, by 7 p.m. everybody's like out.
We
And
always
then you go.
serve whenever we serve either pastis or absinthe, we serve it in a glass neat, and then we have a side little container of water. And the idea is you pour a little water in, and as soon as you pour
Right.
water in, it instantly gets
Yeah.
cloudy,
Yep.
which added to its mystique, of course.
Mm.
Um, and it's a wonderful thing. And then you can add
Ah,
as
it's
much
beautiful.
water as you want. You can make it as diluted as you
But
need it to
that's the
be.
thing
But
with pastis. You put a half shot. So you put between 3/4 and 1 ounce, between
yeah,
3/4 ounce and 1 ounce, and you put water. So you can feel the alcohol. It's very diluted, and you can sip that. It's very hot out there. You know, in Aix-en-Provence, it's super hot, right? So you
right,
load with ice. It has to be really cold. So the water for the pastis is always kept in the fridge, and if it's warm, people will not like it. They will not drink it. And you know, we
hmm
don't have enough ice in south of France, right? It's not, we don't have ice machines. I mean,
right,
maybe now we do. But when I was working, when I was 18 years old or 17, all we had is those small fridge with those cubes.
right,
So you give one or two per person, two for the pitchet. The pitchet has to send the fridge, and people are really chasing ice all over the place, right? Because that's the thing. So that was the only problem we had is the ice. Everybody's looking for ice. So you
right,
go next door, get some ice. You go to the next across the street, get some ice. I don't have any. My ice is not ready. Come back in an hour. Or
right.
we're all
And all,
making ice all day long, you know?
and all through the 60s and the 70s, I mean, Americans in Europe were notorious for wanting ice in their drinks, and nobody
Yep.
had ice. Like you said, they just didn't have the big ice machines that we have.
Whoa, copper.
Um,
That's good.
Adding copper to make it green. Interesting. Um, yeah, and so, but Americans were used to ice. If you got a drink, you had tons of ice in it, and so they always wanted ice in, whether they were in England or France or wherever they were, and people just, and barkeeps would get frustrated with them because these Americans, they just want all this ice. What's the
That's the
deal?
thing, exactly. We don't have not that much ice. I remember very well working in a restaurant, and we don't have ice. You have like maybe two trays or four trays to start with. That's the end for the night.
Right,
So after we, got used to that, then we pre-make ice cube, but there was no freezer. We didn't have all these machines.
right,
You see, I mean, there was no, so we didn't have places to put all this ice, and it goes fast because it was so hot. There was no air conditioning, so you have to understand. Also, I was working in the pizza place. That was hot,
Yeah.
like really, really hot. So it's like it was. We were sweating, right?
Hmm.
And we were drinking the pasties all day long.
Well, that's
So
why
by
if
seven
you go into the
by 7
bakeries.
p.m. by 7 p.m. they're drunk as hell. They have to go take a nap.
Yeah.
And then you can see them reemerging around 9 p.m., when the sun is out and it's a little fresher outside. And then they start by drinking a rosé or little aperitif to start the night again, right? But
Uh-huh.
they've been sleeping for 2 hours, snoring, and sometimes they are on their seat, like
Well, and ice was why cocktails really developed in the United States during the Jazz Age, because suddenly
right.
there was this huge availability of ice here because Americans wanted ice. They wanted their drinks cold, and suddenly
That's
you could
crazy.
waste ice. I mean, you could shake,
Wow.
because if you're going to shake cocktails, you
Right.
need a lot of ice. And if you're going
Yeah.
to do this all night for a group of people, you need a lot of ice. Plus you're putting ice in the drinks, and so, and even today, if you go to England and order a gin and tonic, they don't put ice in it.
They don't?
Maybe in
Wow.
a big hotel they would, but if you go into a pub somewhere in England and you order gin and tonic, you're going to get
That's weird.
a glass with gin and probably a little bottle of tonic next to it,
Oh, yeah.
and
Okay.
there's no ice, just a piece of lime in it. And they don't understand Americans' obsession with everything being cold. And that's like their beer. Their beer is served at cellar temperature. It's not ice cold like
Well, like
ours is, but
in
it's also a different kind of beer. Our beer tends to be lager beer, and theirs is ale, and you don't want it ice cold.
But
I mean,
also I mean, up to like when you serve water, first of all, in France, you don't serve water unless your people ask for it,
right?
and there's no ice in it. It's just
No,
a carafe, so it's cold or not, but there's
yeah,
no ice. People don't like ice in their food. First of all, drinking ice cold drink is really bad when you eat. It's
yeah,
terrible.
yeah,
It Um, it basically what you have to do, and this is a big problem because once you swallow that ice, the stomach has to work really hard to bring it to temperature.
right.
So
And
it uses a lot of
when it
energy.
should be working on digesting your food.
Exactly. So you have to understand that the body can only do so much. So the more you give it things to work on and to trip on, the digestion is going to be suffering, and also everything else is going to be suffering. So
Yeah,
ice, water, or super cold water, or just the same with super hot stuff. Same idea. It has to
right,
be room temperature, everything. So the stomach has the right temperature and digests it fast instead of
right.
having to convert, lose energy by it's crazy. So it is really a problem. People that drink big things of ice
Yeah.
never happen. It's
We
yeah,
don't put ice in the water at Cesar. We always have pitchers of water to give to
right.
people, but we don't put ice in it.
Mm.
And most people, when they order water, they say, can we have waters too?" And no ice, no ice.
I know people are
And
coming
we have one
because
busser at work that inevitably, when he fills the pitchers, he fills them full of ice. And I say, "Rudy, don't
yeah,
put
right,
all that ice in there. People don't want that." And occasionally somebody says, "Can I have a glass of ice water?" And
right.
sure, we put ice in a glass and fill it with water, and they can have all the ice they
But
want.
it's
But most people don't, and it's like you say, it's a bad thing, and it's just too cold. You don't need that.
so when I used to work in Aix-en-Provence, you serve rosé with ice, like a
Mm,
couple of cubes, because it's first of all it's really hot out there.
right.
So if you drink wine on a hot like this, you get drunk pretty fast.
Hmm.
And the wine is too hot. It gets hot really fast. And
Right.
rosé when it's warm, it's not very good. It tastes weird. So
Yeah.
you can put one ice cube, and you can see this is the only time we serve ice is with pastis or rosé,
Hmm.
and people will put it into their glass. So people ask me sometimes, it's very hot, and they put a ice cube in their glass, and I say, chef. They said to me, chef, you're gonna be frustrated with me. I'm like, I don't care what you do. Like, why would I be frustrated?
Yeah.
I do that too. I put ice in my rosé or in my white wine. Who cares? Like,
Yeah. You
leave me
don't want to put
alone.
a lot
Like,
because you don't want it to get diluted, but you do want it
right.
to be
But
cold.
you can do whatever you want. It's like
Yeah.
people just don't
In
worry
Puerto
about what people
Rico,
think,
in Puerto
right?
Rico, in Puerto Rico, people put ice in their beer. They'll put
Oh yeah,
several ice cubes in their beer
sugar. 'Cause it's
to make
hot.
it really cold. And
In
I
Mexico,
did it when I was there, and it was great. It
in
was
Mexico,
cold.
I've done it in Mexico. Lime,
Yeah,
we put lime. How worse? What worse can you do? Put an acid in alcohol, right?
yeah, right,
You can't.
right.
That's the worst thing you can do, but it's good, right?
Yeah,
And also, the lime is an antibacterial. So you put that on your glass and it cleans. So it's really a good and strong antibacterial. That's why you use lime also.
right.
And salt as well. Salt does that. And salt is an antibacterial, very strong.
It's funny. Occasionally, somebody will get a glass of water or a glass of wine or something at Cesar, and there'll be a little fly will land in it, and so they'll call us over and they'll say, "Oh, I have this fly," and and they want you to give them a new glass of wine, and of course we give them a new glass of wine.
Yeah, yeah, of course,
We
yeah.
usually make a joke about how there's no extra charge for that, but I mean, if I'm in a restaurant and I look at my wine and there's a fly sitting on top, I reach in, I take it
Yeah,
out,
right.
I pitch it, and I mean, it's not going to hurt you. Um,
It's not
but
gonna hurt
people,
the fly either.
it's, you know, but
Anyway,
people
so
get people get very funny about that. People are very squeamish about anything like that. Any
well, you're
little
gonna
thing.
see, James, you're gonna see that more and more. I mean,
Sure.
working in a restaurant business nowadays is a challenge. I don't know. I would never open a restaurant today. I don't know what's the next trends. Like right now, it's all vegan food and plant-based. I'm not sure that's gonna be. I mean, everything is going down to the garbage, man.
Yeah. Yep.
It's scary. Fake food, fake food. I think I would say California, the home of the fake food.
Yeah. Which
It's
is
crazy. It
ironic
is
since we produce
incredible.
so much food.
They have all these beautiful vegetables and all these beautiful pastured and animal, but no, they are the king of making fast food here.
Yep.
Fake food, sorry. Fake meat, fake chorizo, fake everything soy based.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good
Ugh.
luck with being healthy on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of things floating in your drink, uh, people often ask about the worm and
Oh, right.
the worm in mezcal. And by the
Or
way,
the
it's
snake. Or what about the
mezcal
snake?
is the snake.
In remember that alcohol with the snake in? Remember that?
Oh no, no. What was that?
You've seen that anyway. We've talked about it before. There's a snake in there, or you can have a Scorpio. Anyway, it doesn't do anything, right?
Oh yeah. Well, people have asked which it
Right,
is it does all mezcal have a worm in it? And the answer is no. Um, it is not a sign of quality. In fact, it's a
right,
gimmick, and it's
right.
if you see the little worm, and it's actually a gusano, it's actually a
Mm,
grub. It's like a it's not a sign of good mezcal. It's a sign of somebody trying to cash in on a gimmick, and it
really?
and people also there was also this myth that the worm would be hallucinogenic. So the last
Right.
thing you would drink would be the
Yeah.
worm, and it would make you see things. And
So the thing about this though, James, is the if you drink a bottle with two people or three people, or whatever, you at the end you share the warm.
right, and you're probably going to see things because you've just consumed an entire bottle of mezcal, and and you're drunk out of your mind. So yeah,
And
the
then you
worm is
realize, and then you realize there's a worm in there.
right,
You're
right.
like, what the hell is that?
Virility, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, whatever.
Um,
There's all this.
well, it'd be a fun thing to talk about sometime because there's so many stories about the origins of drinks and alcohol and things, and many of them are true. Some of them are myths. Like that Saint Patrick introduced distillation to Ireland, which is probably not
Ah.
true at all. And but
No, Saint Patrick was a traveler, right?
yeah,
He would travel, he literally conquered England, here Ireland, and England by foot, not conquered, but uh, gave travel with the Christianity, right? Everywhere
right.
just by
Right,
himself. It's
he was a
crazy.
traveling monk that was spreading the word, and
Wow,
he
that
was,
is amazing.
establishing
That is crazy
monasteries and
stuff,
stuff.
right?
It's very doubtful that he introduced distillation, but he might have.
That
It was probably a group of monks. It was probably more than one monk that did it. There's also the great story that Saint Patrick banished all the snakes from Ireland, which the truth is there never were snakes in Ireland. Ireland has no snakes for some reason. I mean,
really?
it's an island, so they just never were there, and they've never been introduced. And but
Okay. Wow.
uh,
Who
I
knew,
like
man?
snakes. I like snakes, so
I do. I
um,
do too. I had a what is that? A Python constrictor, so no teeth,
oh yeah, yeah,
and it's large.
yeah,
And I had it in my apartment in Los Angeles. And at some point, I lost the snake. You know, the snake, they go, sometimes they disappear, right?
right, right.
And I was moving out. And I had to tell my landlord. And he was freaking out. And then apparently everybody was freaking out in the whole building because I lost my snake, right? And I told him it's not, you know, he's a python constrictor. So he will kill you, he will strangle you, but he will not eat you. And then right before I left, I found him. It was incredible, man. One day I was in the morning, I opened my drawer to get my toothbrush, and the snake literally goes like this. Whoa, puta.
Oh, that's funny.
And then
Yeah,
I, I,
I had a friend that had a boa constrictor when I was a kid, and we used to play with it all the time. He would wrap himself around my arm, and then he would just sort of stare at me. I could
oh yeah,
feel
right.
him.
Yep.
He would just hang on. I
He's
mean, they don't.
flexing his muscles. Yeah,
Yeah, they don't actually crush you. What they do is they're very strong, so they hang on, and when they catch an animal, they wrap themselves around it, and
yeah,
then as the animal exhales, they just constrict a little bit more and they hold, so then
yeah,
the animal can't breathe in, so they die, and then the snake eats it. So they're completely harmless to humans. I mean, they don't attack humans, they don't eat humans, they're too small.
yeah, right.
um, but
And that's why when
small animals would be in trouble.
and that's why a lot of reason when I go with my son in kind of a wilder area, you
Hmm.
always whistle or sing or talk.
Uh-huh.
I always tell him, make sure you make enough noise so if there's any snakes,
Yeah.
because the snakes, they're afraid.
Yeah, they don't want to be in contact with us. They'd much rather split. And that's true with a lot of wild animals. I mean, most animals, I mean, like if you go into the wilds of Wyoming or somewhere, you rarely ever see a wolf. They're around,
Oh,
but you
wow.
don't see them because the wolves know you're there. They smell you long before you get there, and
Right.
they just go
All
away.
right.
They don't want to be in contact with humans.
Wow.
So,
Unless they're hungry, right?
unless
Uh,
they're like old or sick or have been somehow cut
right.
out of the pack, then they can be dangerous. But typically, healthy wolves, they travel in a pack, and they
Uh,
don't hunt humans. They don't want
right.
anything to do with us.
Crazy.
And most animals don't.
And that's funny because that's where the dogs come from.
Right, right. Well, at some point, a wolf came into the circle of
Right.
fire,
Right.
and uh, and then that
His,
was it. And
his
then they
name was
started
James.
domesticating it. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, yeah,
Cool.
worms and mezcal. But basically, if you see a bottle of mezcal with a worm in it, you probably don't want that brand. You probably want to
Oh,
buy
really?
something a little better because it's probably not very good.
Oh,
Um,
okay. And bad alcohol is really bad, right? It's really bad
Bad
for you.
alcohol is bad. I
It's
mean,
terrible. It's really bad.
if you're gonna drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they say drink responsibly. Well, part of that means buy better quality spirits.
Hmm.
And you don't have to spend a fortune.
Yeah. No.
I mean, we have brandies at work that are some of my favorite cognacs that are not terribly expensive. I mean, it's like $13 for a glass of brandy, which is not a lot,
Right.
but it's so much better than some rot gut brandy. You can buy a lot of cheap alcohol, and it's just not worth it. It's not good for your system. It's not good for your gut. Um, unless your goal is just to be able to drink as much as you possibly can and obliviate your mind, in which case, yeah, buy the cheap stuff. But why would you
Right.
want to do that anyway?
Drink your cologne.
Yeah, To me, alcohol is something to be savored and enjoyed.
Yeah.
My goal is never to get
And
drunk.
sorry. We've been drinking for a long time.
You and me? You mean
Uh,
humans? Yeah, humans have been drinking for a long time.
and one of the reasons is because water is been terrible for forever. It's
Right,
very, very difficult to keep water potable, I mean drinkable, because
right. Especially in urban areas, like,
yeah,
it,
so there was no
water was
water. So
terrible. It was
the only
very
thing to drink, the only thing to drink was beer and mead and wine. You are not touching the water. Nobody
right,
did.
right.
Kids, anybody, you do not touch the water ever.
Yeah. In
And
England,
that's
they brewed beer at different strengths.
right,
So they would have a very like a 3% beer that would be for
right.
kids, and then
Yeah,
strong, and even for humans, like at breakfast, you drink a low
right.
alcohol beer, and then you maybe
Absolutely.
have a higher one later on in the
Yeah.
day. And there was more
And
beer than water on board the Mayflower when it first came to America. And yet we think of
because
the
you could not,
Pilgrims as being so
I know,
um
Puritanism.
anti-alcohol, but they weren't at all. And of course, they didn't advocate drunkenness.
Yeah, right, right, right.
But they knew that
Yeah,
water was dangerous. Water could often make you ill. So better to have something that was fermented, that had wild yeasts in it that would
yep, yep.
kill any bad things,
Hmm.
and was much healthier for you.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I love to
Yeah.
drink. I love alcohol. I love to sip something really good. I don't
I
drink as
love you,
much.
man.
What do they say? Alcohol has been making people more attractive for 10,000 years. Uh, I don't drink as much wine as I used to. I don't drink very much wine. I know you don't drink much wine these days. I
I
like
don't drink a
beer,
lot.
and
I don't drink much.
I drink.
It's not good for me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not good for my age. After past 60, I mean, a lot of people drink regularly a little bit, and it's very good for them. It's kind of relaxing, and they have the habit. And don't break your habit. It's if you feel good about it, that's fine.
yeah,
I know alcohol doesn't make me feel good. Makes me feel tired, so I drink very little of it. That's all.
yeah. I There's a lot of research that suggests that having a cocktail at the end of the day is good for your level of stress. It relaxes you. It's good for your heart because it just reduces stress, and it just makes you feel a little more at ease. But that doesn't mean you should go home and
Now,
pound a bunch of drinks. I mean,
for any study that you find a benefit, there's going to be three studies finding the counter opposite, and that goes for each study for each any
right,
field. There's as many study against or for anything everywhere.
right,
There's
right.
hundred of studies that are being published every day. It's unbelievable, and
Well,
really you can do a lot of cherry picking there.
when I was editing the trade magazines for the food business, I would get tons of press releases all the time, of course, for various things, and I
Oh
was
yeah,
always getting something about some new study that showed that blueberries would
I know.
do this and that,
Or coffee
and
or chocolate. Oh my God.
and I always used to wonder two things. Like, well, first of all, there's so many of these results that come out. How long was this study? Who did they study? How did they study it? And I also looked to see who sponsored the study. Because I
Yeah, which one's
guarantee
for?
you,
Who is it for? And
if the study shows that blueberries are the magic pearl of health, I guarantee you that it was the Blueberry Association that sponsored the study.
yeah, could be that.
Not that blueberries aren't good for you. Blueberries are a wonderful food, but it's just an
It could be
example of
that.
how.
It could be a frozen company. It could be a distributor. It could be
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah,
They could
yeah.
anybody can go pick a study or few study that really illustrate their message, their and that's it. And that goes for everything. Could be beer, wine, alcohol. You can find anything on. So it
I re-
depends if you like it or not, right?
I remember about 10 years ago there was much ballyhoo about suddenly they had done all these studies that it showed that holy cow, chocolate
I know,
has
right?
antioxidants and it could actually be good for you to eat chocolate. And so people just started, for all the people that love to eat chocolate, it was their excuse to just go bananas on buying candy bars. And my reaction was, well, first of all, most of the commercial chocolate is so full of sugar that it's got very,
Yeah,
very little actual cacao in it.
no,
So, you should still take it easy. But also, it's like cacao is a natural product. It's a food. It grows on a tree. Why would it be
right.
such a surprise to learn that it had beneficial
I
elements to it? I mean,
know, right?
it's that's like saying suddenly oh my God, broccoli's good for you. Well, no shit, it's good for you. I mean, so is
I know.
cabbage. So is
So we
people are
agree.
so
We don't
funny.
want
People
to,
are always looking for that magic bullet, that
James. We don't want to see another study on coffee or chocolate. Okay,
no,
or red wine. We got it.
yeah,
Too much is
yeah,
too much. It's good for you. Just done.
yeah.
Stop.
And if you don't want to drink alcohol, then don't drink alcohol.
Don't
It's
drink
no
it.
big
Yeah.
deal. Don't try to
Who is
push it
saying?
off on everybody else. But
Who is saying? I'm always very cautious on health books because I could die from a misprint. Right?
right, right.
Yeah. I mean,
That might have been Woody Allen or somebody. I don't know.
no,
But
it
yeah.
was either Bernard Shaw or the other guy who.
Oh, yeah.
There's another guy who also pretty. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's
Yeah.
finish with another question, James. Let's switch from alcohol. We talked a lot about alcohol, which is good stuff. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm drunk on talking about alcohol.
I know, right?
Well, here's one. This one, I don't know why this one was in the same group as the worm and the tequila, but what do you think are the three most important skills to learn in cooking? And again, these are questions asked by students at Kitchen on Fire. So these are people that are looking to learn how to cook, and they want to know what are
Right.
the three most important skills. I don't know how they came up with three. Um, I mean, if you were if somebody knew nothing about cooking and you were going to try to teach them something and you had a day with them, what would be the first thing you would teach them how to do besides maybe chop
I
an
think.
onion? I don't know.
Well, I think I would go with mise en place. I think that would be my first kind of organize your, all your
Right.
stuff so you have a sense of what's going on. Otherwise, it becomes this chaos and you get very, very frightened by the kitchen. So
Mhm.
I would say a good organization to start with. Cutting would be the first skill so we can prepare everything. And then basic cooking, I would say.
Sauté?
I mean, saute is one of the technique because then you need to know how to braise and roast and bake because it's all
Mhm.
together. You don't use one technique. You use
Right.
few techniques, right? You sear first, then you add your liquid, that's braising, then you go in your oven, that's baking. That could be braising, that's also baking. You never do one thing. It's just,
Right.
you could sear one thing like eggs. You could sear eggs, that's it. It's not really searing, it's sauteed or
Right.
you know what I mean?
Right.
Steak also, I could just cook a steak, but the chicken, it's hard to sear. I mean, I can start it and finish it in the oven, right? I need more time, less temperature.
Right. Unless you're
So
going
I
to cut
think
it
to,
cut it up and braise it in a
yeah.
pan or something,
So I
which
think for cooking, because obviously I've done that for many, many years, and I think there's no shortcut on cooking. That is very important. You cannot shortcut. You have to learn. There's uh, one of the basic series that I do here, the 12-week series. Uh, it's long. I mean, it's 12 weeks, but it's step by step. I
Mhm.
take you to a good home cook, home chef,
Right.
which basically after the 12 weeks, you can cook anything. You can go to the market, decide what you look just without looking at the recipe. That's what you want.
Right.
After that training, you can do it yourself. You don't need to come to me. I'm just saying you need to do step by step, keep working. And then after that, you can go into fancy or more complicated recipe because now it's fun because you have the basis.
Right.
Otherwise, it's a nightmare. It's frustrating, and then you don't want to do it anymore. And I understand that, right?
Right. And even if you want to get off into certain kinds of uh, like learn how to cook Thai food or
Right,
learn how to
right.
cook,
More
whatever,
specific.
you still need to know the basic techniques of cooking. I mean, if you're cooking
You,
Thai
you
food, you still are going to saute, you're still going to braise, you're still going to
you
put
need a
stuff in the oven.
temperature. You need a vessel. You need some type of fire,
You
right?
still need to know how to cut up your ingredients,
Basic, yeah. You want to cut them
um
evenly so they cook evenly.
And a lot of people think that once I know how to cook, then I don't need cookbooks anymore, which I guess is true, but cookbooks can also be a great source of inspiration. I mean, I know
Yeah,
people that are wonderful cooks. They
I have
know
tons
how
of
to
books.
cook,
Oh my God.
but they love to read cookbooks because it gives them ideas. It might be a combination of
Oh yeah,
ingredients that they
ideas.
didn't think of
Totally.
before, or
And the steps can be switching. No, a lot of ideas, a lot of good ideas. Still, I mean, we have tons of books here.
yeah. I mean, there's a
I have
lot of stupid
hundreds of books.
cookbooks that come out, but there's a lot of cookbooks that are really thoughtful, that really explore ingredients. And if you're really interested in vegetables,
Oh yeah,
books that really talk about each vegetable, how does it grow, what's the season for this, what's
how
the
to cook
best way
those.
of preparing it, what's the best way of storing it, and what to look for when you're buying it. I mean, these are all wonderful things that you can learn from cookbooks. I love cookbooks.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So, and I've seen James. That was funny. Remember there was a recession in books for like few years ago, and remember the cookbook, they're still going strong
Yeah, right,
because it's a beautiful gift. You can always, you know, it's funny, huh? So cookbooks are always doing good because you want to own a cookbook. You want to go in there and you want to. Cookbooks are great. They're much better than the internet. That's for sure. Both are great. You can have, there's great website on cooking, but books are. You need also those books. And I
right.
and I tell you, I'm sorry. It's like with Lisa and I, we work with people with cancer. We've done that for like 15 years. So we cook for them, and the books on cancer, we have to have them because in the books there's stuff we can't find on the internet. There's no way.
Right,
So we have all these books that we have to read, and this reading doesn't appear in the internet at all. It's not even.
right.
So books are important, right?
Also, when you have a book, you kind of know who wrote it, you know what their credentials are. It's been edited.
Yeah,
There's
right,
been a
right,
professional editor that has
right,
helped
totally.
shape the book, and you can put a lot more trust in what they're
Yeah.
saying because
Hmm.
there's something behind it. And
And you have
also,
a
you
source of fun.
right, and also they have bibliographies, and like these are all the
Right.
books that we
Yeah,
recommend, and it
absolutely.
also, you can get more than one book, so you can compare and contrast. And when you find the same information in book after book after book, you can trust that this maybe these people know what they're talking about, and
So my books are
you
all
can make
written.
your
I
own.
have marks everywhere. I really literally write on my books everywhere. I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah,
It's not for resale, it's for me. And there's notes everywhere. Not in the text because I want to keep the text clear so I can, copy some excerpt, but I'm going to go on the side. I'm going to put cross, a little stars here and there. I'm going to put, so I can go back to quickly when I read the
yeah.
whole book. I can go back to what's very important. A lot of books have a lot of wasted time, but anyway, there's a
I
lot of rambling.
I mean, I've only written one cookbook with you. We wrote a bar book too, but
Yep.
the Cesar book was really a cookbook. But I've known a lot of cookbook authors, and the last thing they want to see in somebody's kitchen is a copy of their book that's absolutely pristine with
No.
clean
This one is.
pages, unbroken. Yeah, that's a book that's not been used. You want to I had a friend who was a cook, very good cook and a caterer in New York, and she said that her copy of certain cookbooks, you could make
Oh
stock
yeah.
out of them. You could just put the book in a boiling water and make really good stock because they were
Wow.
so stained with meat juice
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
vegetable
yeah.
stock and all kinds of stuff. And that's what
And
you
and
want
uh,
to see. You want to see a book
and
that's really been used and
and it has a
cooked with.
soul. It
Yeah,
has object can really capture some energy.
yeah,
I don't want to go too much into esoteric here, but it feels good. The book
yeah,
has been read, it's been used, there's people touch it, to work on it.
yeah, yep, yep.
All right, so we have 30 seconds to say bye.
Oh my
So
God.
say
So we'll say
quick,
it
quick.
very slowly.
So
Goodbye.
you have a guest in mind,
I do.
first guest in mind, right?
Yeah, in
And
a couple of weeks we're gonna
couple
get
of weeks.
Dennis Ring is his name, and he owns Ocho Chocolate, and we're gonna get him on the show. He's doing some new stuff. He's a really interesting chocolate maker because he has developed certain techniques for doing
Oh
chocolate.
yeah,
He only uses really good organic
yeah, great.
ingredients, and it's it's candy. Let's not sugarcoat it. He
I
makes
know, I know,
candy,
I know, I
but
know.
it's candy at its very highest
Right,
quality. And
exactly,
candy,
right.
nothing wrong with candy if you make it a treat. If you live on it, it's
Yeah,
probably not
right.
too good, but he would not advocate that anyway.
Yeah.
He's
Cool.
really great. He's a really great guy. Whenever he comes
We
in to
had
say
him.
sorry, he
We had
always
him on the
brings
show
tons of chocolate. Yeah, we
a
had him
couple of
on
years
the old
ago.
show,
Yeah,
and he's a very
good,
interesting guy.
great,
And we're going to have him again in a couple of weeks, and
great.
we will post that. And that's it.
All
That's
right,
all we have to say today. Actually, we have a lot more to say, but we've run out of time.
not today. All right, people. Good to see you again.
Thanks for
Kenny,
coming, and we'll
bye.
see you next
Friday.
week. Yeah.
Yep.
Bye, Frody. Bye, Kenneth. Bye, everyone. Let's name all our listeners.